Hey Planeswalkers, Eric again from Bane Alley Magic. Sorry it's been so long since I've posted content. I've been working on some really cool videos for you, but I've run across a few hurdles. Anyway, very soon I'm going to be releasing a Commander gameplay video with my Varina Lich Queen deck facing off against Ashling the Pilgrim, Riku of Two Reflections, and Zedra the Great-Hearted. So keep checking back for that. In the meantime, I'm going to be giving you some top 13 lists, starting with white. I've tried this as a top 10 at first and realized it just wasn't working for me. So now we're doing top 13 and everyone else can kick rocks. I was also originally going to make the list geared toward 100% mono white decks, but let's face it, playing 100% with mono white cards is just bad decision making. White decks need artifacts. They will always need artifacts to draw cards and to ramp. So this list is going to be talking about cards that are essential not only in mono white decks, but in any deck splashing white. Now obviously as soon as you splash in other colors, you will probably be able to find better choices, and that's fine, but this is a list of mono white cards specifically. Also, the order and choices of cards is always subject to arbitrary circumstances, so I just want to remind you that this is my personal top 13 choices, although I have utilized assistance from critiques of friends. So, let's get on to it, starting with some honorable mentions. Debt of Loyalty is 1 generic and 2 white for an instant. It says regenerate target creature and gain control of that creature. So it's an honorable mention because it's just a really cool card that is doing an ability that's really outside of white. I looked into it, and the creature does need to die, even though regenerate is worded that the next time the creature would die, it doesn't. By regenerating it. The creature does need to die in order for you to gain control of the creature, but still, for just 3 mana, gain control of a creature, that is super powerful and cool. Next we got Sera Ascend, 1 white for a 1/1 human monk with lifelink, and as long as you have 30 or more life, Sera Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. So, yeah, really busted card, really powerful card. But this is not a list of the most powerful white cards. It's the list of some essential white cards. White cards you just need to get your deck working. So having the most powerful creature on the board, especially turn 1, is not always the best. It's definitely not going to win you the game all by itself. In Commander, especially 4-player games, your bombs need support in order for you to win the game. So Sera Ascendant's great, such a fabulous card, especially get it out turn 1. But obviously the problem is that then it turns everyone against you, and everyone's going to be looking for a removal spell, trying to kill Sera Ascendant, or they're at least going to be trying to get your life total down to below 30. So that's why it's not on the list, though it is a very powerful card. Again, it's a list of essentials, not the most powerful cards, because sometimes, the most powerful creatures, they're just easy to deal with. You get a removal spell and that most powerful creature is gone, so still a really great card. As well as Mentor of the Meek in certain circumstances. So, 2 generic and a white for a human soldier, a 2/2 human soldier. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. So, as far as white cards go, this probably is the most useful draw card spell, but it still stinks. And that's why white needs artifacts, because its draw card spells are still not that powerful. Mentor of the Meek, it really only works in a token deck. Which, even so, I do suggest if you're playing mono white that you probably play a token deck, or you play a strictly, artifact themed deck with white splashed in there. But I think a token deck is probably one of white's best strategies, because tokens are card advantage. They're using 1 card to create many tokens, and that is white's kind of form of card advantage, as it doesn't have many good draw card spells. But as far as draw card spells in white goes, Mentor of the Meek is probably, still the best. That or SRAM Senior Artificer for the same reason. For SRAM, you need to build the deck around SRAM. SRAM needs to be your commander. SRAM needs to have every card in the deck be an aura equipment or a vehicle card. So, really great draw card spell in a very specific setting. So that's why I didn't make this list as something essential to every white deck. Alright, so let's get into the top 13. Starting with the Congregate. So 3 generic and a white For an instant, target player gains 2 life for each creature on the battlefield. So I know what you're going to say. Gaining life doesn't win you the game. Why is this an essential card? Well, I think that, every white deck, I mean, you're playing white. Part of your strategy should, not your strategy, but your backup plan should evolve. All right, if everyone else is ganging up on me and taking me out, I might need to gain some life, If you're going to gain some life, you better gain a lot of life. And that's what this thing can do. I mean, if you just imagine, if every player has 4 creatures out in a 4-player game, that's 16 creatures. That's 32 life right there that you gain off of 4 mana. I mean, that's huge. And I mean, very often this is going to gain you even more than 32 life. I've seen this gain people so much life. And so, if you just need that one card in your deck that's kind of a backup, like, all right, if I'm just losing horribly and I need to get back into the game, Congregate will get you back into the game. It'll save you a little bit. But again, it's number 13 because gaining life doesn't win you the game by itself. It'll get you back into the game, maybe, if you're hopefully not playing against an infect deck or someone that's dealing you tons of commander damage, but it'll gain you that life. So that's number 13. All right, number 12 is land tax. For just 1 white mana, you get an enchantment that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is a really great ramp card, but as someone pointed out to me, it's really great only early game, right? If you draw this card late game, it's actually kind of dead because it's slow, and you gotta wait a turn, and if you have more lands than the other person, you're obviously not going to get anything. But where it's really great for is early game. As an early game draw, this is a fabulous card. It's going to get you those basic lands out of your deck, and it's going to help you filter through your deck to make sure, that your next draw is going to be less likely to be a basic land, and you get those basic lands in your hand. So, really cool card, but mostly, again, great for early game, not so great late game. Alright, next we got Avacyn, Angel of Hope, which is 5 generic and 3 white for an 8/8 legendary angel with flying, vigilance, and indestructible. It says other permanents you control have indestructible. So everything from your lands, enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers, and creatures, they all have indestructible. The reason this is so low on the list is because it's easy to deal with, right? I mean, someone can gain control of her, they can transform her into something with no abilities, they can exile her, they can just enchant her. I mean, there's lots of ways to deal with a big bomb, especially in Commander when you're playing against 3 other players. So that's why this is so low on the list, though it is a fabulous card. All of these are great cards. But yeah, in general, also, I like to say what's good for you isn't as good as what's bad for your opponent, right? So, often when people are telling you how to build a deck, they say include this many removal spells, right? Include this many board wipes. How often do they say include this many spells that make your own creatures indestructible? I do suggest running 1 or 2 of those, but it's not like essential to every deck. What you need is powerful removal, which is, why Avacyn is great. She's fabulous, but she's not, number 1 here. So next we got Steel Shaper's Gift for just 1 white, sorcery speed, it's a sorcery, excuse me. Search your library for an equipment card, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is really great in Commander, where you need to get Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots. You need that Dark Steel Plate, or you need that equipment card that's just going to just make your creature powerful enough, like, say, Black Blade Reforge, so you can kill your opponent. So, it's a tutor, and it only searches for equipment, which is why it's lower on the list. But I think it is a great card, fabulous card in Commander, and could go in any deck splash in white, because in Commander, how many decks have a Swiftfoot Boots, and how many times do you wish you had Swiftfoot Boots on your Commander? All the time for me. Alright, next we got Blind Obedience, number 9, for 1 generic and a white. It's an enchantment, which has Extort, which means whenever you cast a spell, you may pay a white or a black mana. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. And Blind Obedience also says, artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So, even though Extort has that reminder text that has a black/white mana symbol on it, this is still able to be used in mono white decks, I want to point out, because that is the reminder text, right? When any color symbol is put in the reminder text, it's not considered part of the card because the card could be made without the reminder text. You know, you've seen several cards out there with extort on them without reminding you what extort does. So anyway, the Blind Obedience is one of the most powerful versions of these cards. I also like Authority of Consuls, but Blind Obedience, making your artifacts, your opponent's artifacts and creatures enter the battlefield tapped is fabulous. This totally nullifies haste, right? Your opponent's creatures will not be able to attack the turn they came in. And also, it gets rid of the advantage of flash a lot of times, because lots of times people are going to flash their creatures in to try to block your creatures, but when they flash their creatures in now, they're not going to be able to block. And also, it eliminates a lot of activated abilities that creatures would be able to do right away, or, you know, things that just say maybe tap an untapped wizard you control to return a target permanent to its owner's hand, like Gale Rider Colossus, something like that, that giant wizard. Anyway, they won't be able to tap any of their wizards, you know, to activate that ability. So, very cool, very helpful card. And Extort is just great, you know, draining all of your opponents of 1 life, and you gaining that much life is actually quite a decent amount of life gain. So, great card. Next, we got Sun Titan at number 8. 4 generic and 2 white for a 6/6 giant with vigilance, and whenever Sun Giant enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So again, that says permanent card, that is land, enchantment, you know, you could do that crummy, you could get that Nissa Planeswalker, actually, that's X and 2 generic, or no, that's X and a blue and a green, excuse me. You can get that Planeswalker back on the battlefield. So Sun Titan is fabulous. It just lets you get things out again and again. One great combo I've seen is using this with you know, Burnished Heart. Yeah, there you go. It just lets you ramp over and over again. So very essential card with any white deck, you know, where your permanents are probably going to be targeted, because I feel like that's one of white's advantages in the game, is just having very powerful creatures. You know, it doesn't have a lot of card draw, it doesn't have a lot of ramp, it just has very powerful cards in general. So that's where Sun Titan is great. You got to get those cards back because they're going to get targeted and removed. Next we got Return to Dust. So again, what's bad for your opponents is better than what's good for you, which is why this is so high on the list. So Return to Dust is an instant spell for 2 generic and 2 white. It says exile target artifact or enchantment. If you cast this spell during your main phase, you may exile up to 1 other target artifact or enchantment. So you get the options of exiling 2 artifacts or enchantments. That is just so huge. You know, they're exiled, they go away forever, and guaranteed not to get them back. So Return to Dust is just probably the most powerful artifact enchantment removal spell in mono white as far as targeted removal goes. Grasp of Fate. Well, I guess I just contradicted myself here, because this can also target artifacts or enchantments, but Grasp of Fate can also target anything, which is why this is a little better. It can target literally anything. So it's 1 generic and 2 white for an enchantment. When Grasp of Fate enters the battlefield, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls until Grasp of Fate leaves the battlefield. So this is like that other white enchantment. What's it called? That lets you exile anything. I can't remember. But anyway, this is just great because it gets each opponent, right? Each opponent, you get to exile 1 of their non-land permanents. Any non-land permanent, you know, Planeswalker, anything you want. So that's pretty sweet. Alright, continuing. Oblivion Ring. That's a stupid thing. Oblivion Ring, that's what I was thinking of. This is like Oblivion Ring on steroids. Yeah. Continuing. Swords of Plowshares. 1 white mana for an instant speed spell. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power, excuse me. So, very powerful card, and it unfortunately gains your opponent some life, but, you know, small price to pay for getting to exile their most powerful creature. But also, because they're gaining life, I feel like that's why Path to Exile is just a little better. You know, Path to Exile is 1 white also for an instant speed spell. It says exile target creature. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle his or her library. So, A little better than Swords to Plowshares, I think, because, you know, with Swords to Plowshares, your opponent could potentially gain tons of life, because, you know, you're usually saving this for their biggest creature, right? Whereas with Path to Exile, they're always just going to get one basic land. So I think that's why Path to Exile takes the cake for me and gets number 4. Alright, so here we go, on to the top 3 essential white cards for Commander, according to me. To Fairies Protection. 2 generic and a white for an instant. It says until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out, which means while they're phased out, they're treated as though they don't exist. They phase in before you untap during your untap step. And you have to exile to Fairies Protection as soon as you cast it. So this spell is fabulous because it saves you. You know, if someone's about to board wipe, it saves your whole team, including all of your tokens. That's very important. And also, if someone's just about to, you know, blow up the whole board with some huge burn spell, you know, your life total can't change. So that's great. This saves you, unfortunately, just for 1 turn. You know, so that 1 turn better be the 1 turn where you're about to, you know, win the next turn, because that's it. It's going to get exiled, and you're not going to be able to recur casting this spell, and that's going to be it. You're going to come back. If your opponents can, you know, kill you all over again the next time, then it's not going to save you. But in lots of situations, this is going to just totally save you from utter death. Number 2, we got Austere Command, 4 generic and 2 white for a sorcery. It says choose 2. You get to destroy all artifacts, or destroy all enchantments, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. So this is one of the many, many, many white board wipe spells. This is white's most powerful ability, is its ability to board wipe and to, you know, remove things. White has the ability to destroy literally anything. You know, it can target almost anything except for planeswalkers, and so white's ability to board wipe is one of its most fabulous pluses. And you know, you have lots of more options other than Austere Command, but Austere Command just gives you those, gives you options on itself. You know, it gives you options of hitting whatever permanents you need to hit at the time. And it says choose 2, so, you know, if you need to destroy all creatures, you can just choose the last 2 options, and you get to destroy all creatures. So that's great. It doesn't exile them, though there are other, you know, board wipes that are mono white, which do exile creatures, so you have those options out there as well. So I kind of like to think of this number 2 category as including all of the white board wipes, I guess is what I've been trying to say poorly for the past couple minutes here. Alright, so here we go. On to the number 1 spell that every white deck should probably have in it. It's Enlightened Tutor. 1 white for an instant. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card, reveal that card, shuffle your library, and then put that card on top of it. So even though this puts that card on top of your library, you know, if you just play this at instant speed at the end of your opponent's turn, you know, at the end of the opponent to your right, that is, at the end of their turn, you know, you only have to reveal that card right before your turn, and, you know, it just gives your other opponents less time to prepare for it, right? Like, let's say you did this on your main phase, you know, on your turn, and you have to reveal the card to prove that it's an artifact or an enchantment, you know, and you show it to everybody, and then they each take their turns. Well, they're each going to prepare for whatever card that you tutored for. So again, it's instant speed, so you better wait till the end of your opponent on your right's end step, and then you tutor for it, and then you just draw it, you know, and so they're not as prepared. And this is way better than Steel Shaper's Gift, because it gets any artifact and any enchantment that you need at the time, which there are obviously many, many, which can, you know, just be this, you know, help you in whatever situation you need. And so Enlightened Tutor for me takes the cake. That's it, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. It really helps out a lot. Until next time, this is Eric signing off. Take care. Take it easy.